Congratulations, you are now a real physiotherapist. These were the words that were said to me by my supervising physio after complaining to him about the super hectic day I just had at the clinic, which was my very first day. That day, I had seen 10 patients back to back with no breaks in between. For each of those patients, I had to be actively listening. I had to navigate through their signs and symptoms, rule out any red flags, perform a physical examination, arrive at a diagnosis, and of course, I had to write a very detailed and comprehensive treatment plans for their very unique conditions. Tiring? Absolutely. It was crushing, but I loved it because that's what I signed up to do. What I did not sign up to do was the hidden administrative work that took me hours to complete beyond my usual working hours, such as documenting manually everything that went on inside the treatment room. Having to write endless progress notes was a nightmare on its own. But the worst part was filing insurance claims, which required more forms to be filled up that had to be submitted on time and accurately, or else we would not have been compensated for the work that we did. I remember one day going back home and just immediately rushing into my bedroom. I didn't even say hi to my parents. I just rushed into my bedroom and buried my head into the pillows, looking like an ostrich. While in that ostrich position, I thought to myself, how can someone do this for 40 years? I cannot be the only one who felt this way. So I sat back down, fired up the laptop, and decided to look up some stats. What I found made my jaw drop to the ground. During the peak of COVID-19, between March 2020 and June 2020, 3,537 healthcare workers were screened for signs of burnout. Out of those, 2,364 healthcare workers tested positive. That is 67%. In South Korea alone, the rate reached up to 77.4%. Now, I know what you might be thinking. That was a global pandemic. Burnouts were expected to happen, and I agree, 100%. But here's the thing. I also found data that goes from before COVID-19 era, like the one in Uganda, where the rate reached up to 40%, or the one in the Middle East, where it reached up to 60%, which is not that different from the COVID-19 era. Then I decided to narrow it down to physiotherapists, my people. Perhaps the grass is greener over there. It wasn't. I found a systematic review and meta-analysis that looked at 32 studies that measured 6,000 physiotherapists from 17 different countries. And what they found was that 20% of those had emotional exhaustion, 23% had depersonalization, and 25% had a feeling of low self-accomplishment. For those of you that are unaware, these three things are the clinical determinants of burnout. If that's not alarming, I don't know what is. I have personally witnessed therapists reaching a point where they are simultaneously documenting and talking to the patient. So while the patient is providing key details about their medical condition and their medical history, the therapist is busy staring at the screen, replying with things like, yeah, right, and continuously checking their watch. Do you think that that patient was providing high quality care? Actually, let me rephrase that. What if you were the patient, and that's how I was treating you? Do you think I was actively listening to you? No. I was crying for help, but on the inside. And then one day, at a certain hospital, at the end of the session, the therapist pulled out a device and started talking to it. I looked at him weirdly and I said, what are you doing right now? Are you podcasting? He said, what? Podcasting? No, I'm documenting. I said, documenting? I thought you had to do this manually. He said, why would I do it manually if I can just, say it out loud? Let me tell you how that felt. Imagine you're a person that was lost in the desert. It's 45 degrees Celsius. You're thirsty. You're hungry. Your lips are cracked. The heat is weighing down on your shoulders. Every step you take feels heavier than the one before. And just as you're about to give up, At the edge of the horizon, you see palm trees swaying and a glint of water catching the light. It's an oasis. And the closer you walk to that oasis, the more you can feel the cold breeze of air sweeping across your face. Too dramatic, I know. But I'm a guy who has wrist pain when he types for too long. So knowing that I don't actually have to do that is a dream come true. So that piqued my interest. And I wanted to find out more about how AI can help healthcare workers. So I found an AI that was designed for insurance billing. That AI would optimize the billing process and simplify the prior authorization process. Then I was surprised to find out that this phone here actually has an application that contains exercises that were specifically designed to reduce stress levels among healthcare workers. They tried it on nurses, and the results were magnificent. So I asked myself, if we already have this technology, why in the world are we not using it? I arrived at 3 conclusions: cost, availability, and fear. Fear. Fear of being replaced by the very thing that we created. And that reminded me of an experience I'm sure most of us can relate to. Remember driving around with your dad and you pull out the GPS and you can see he got a little bit offended? And he says something like, I've been driving around for 30 years. I don't need whatever that is, GBC, whatever. And then you tell him, first of all, Dad, it's called GPS. Second of all, it can show you where the traffic is so that you can avoid it. It can also provide you with an estimated time of arrival so that you won't be late. Still, he wouldn't be convinced. And then you can see a sense of competitiveness building up inside him, between him and the GPS. He wants to arrive quicker than the estimated time. While it is humorous, it is actually quite a logical thought process. If AI is already this good, and it's only going to get better, how will it not take our jobs? That's a very good question to ask. But here's my answer. And I can only speak for physiotherapists, by the way. Physiotherapy is one of the very few fields that is built entirely on human-to-human interaction. It is one of the very few fields where the patient and the practitioner spend months together building a very tight bond throughout the rehab journey, which can extend up to years. In physiotherapy, we don't just treat muscles, bones, ligaments, and tendons. No, we treat the person as a whole. We don't just provide you with a treatment plan and tell you to go off. We provide you with a companion that will be there for you at your very worst times. I'm not sure if any of you here got into an accident and they had to be completely immobilized. I certainly hope not. But if you have, I am sure that you felt helpless. And I'm also sure that the person that kept showing up day after day after day, other than your family, was a physical therapist. I am also sure that he was one of the very few people you felt comfortable being vulnerable towards. AI cannot do that. So I leave you with this. Since we can see that the rates of burnout are on the rise, I urge you to open up to AI and replace the question, will AI take over my job, with something like, how can I use this wonderful piece of technology to help me do what I do best? How can I use it to provide me with what I need the most? Which is time to connect, space to think, and energy to care. Thank you.